I dated this guy for a few months until I realized he was a narcissistic sociopath. While I was dating him, he said things like this: "Would you ever cheat on me? If I took your panties for DNA testing, they wouldn't find anything. If you ever cheated on me, I would kill them," while putting on a pair of brass knuckles. I also worked with this psycho and rented a house with him and other dudes we worked with. He would take my phone while I was asleep and read my texts. One time I was driving us somewhere, and he threw my car into park and grabbed my phone out of my hand. It was winter. I had wedge boots on. He jumped out of the car, and I chased his dumb ass down and threw him in a snowbank. He told people at work he slipped on some ice because he ended up going to the ER. After the place we worked opened up a second store, I went to work at that one. He would constantly drive to my side of town and drive past my store, leave notes on my car. When I went on a Friday night, when I knew he was at work, I went to try to get at least my clothes and my things out of the house. I moved a bunch of heavy stuff in front of the bedroom door because I knew he would show up. Sure as I was, not 10 minutes later, he tries to get in the room and is screaming at me. He tried to grab me when I went near the door to keep him out. He pretended to leave the house, so I took my stuff out anyways. Just said, "F it." Then he followed me down the on-ramp to the highway, riding my ass, trying to rear-end me the whole time. Another time he chased me all over town on the highways, and I'm going like 70 trying to get away from him. I tried to get 3 restraining orders, but they were all denied. His brother is the county sheriff. He had all sorts of people spying on me. I'm sure there's lots more. I finally got out and ended up moving out of state. I came back a couple years ago and found out he died 6 months before I moved back. Pretty pissed that I didn't end him myself.
My first serious boyfriend stalked me for about 5 years after I broke up with him. The reason I broke up with him is because I noticed him becoming increasingly possessive and controlling. This worried me a lot, and I was really young. He was older than me, so I decided to get out. The breakup itself was so brutal, he cried and screamed and begged. Initially after the breakup, his behavior seemed like the harmless actions of a bitter ex. Constant texting and phone calls, sending gifts to my workplace, that sort of thing. After about 6 months, when this hadn't died down, I started bumping into him on my way home from work, or if I was out shopping, so I ended up moving. I couldn't leave my job immediately, but moving house didn't make a difference anyway. This behavior continued for a few years. His behavior became increasingly worse, and the police were very reluctant to do anything. I moved every 6 to 9 months and changed jobs twice, but somehow he always managed to track me down. I didn't use social media and even insisted friends of mine not take any pictures of me in case they posted them on social media. I kept my phone number within my circle of friends, but somehow he always managed to get my new number. I ended up a paranoid wreck, thinking that one of my friends had betrayed me or that my phone company had me listed in a phone book, and all others kinds of crazy thoughts. Then another year passed, and as our encounters got worse, I decided to report him to the police again, and this time they took some action. At this stage, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, I couldn't concentrate at work. I was a shell. About 2 months after I reported him to the police, I woke up one morning to a story in the newspapers about staff in the National Tax Office using resources improperly. My ex was the main perpetrator, using his job to access all of my information. In his job, he had access to my tax records, which meant every time I changed job, address, or phone number, he had access to the most up-to-date information. Before the court case began, he committed suicide, and I'm not ashamed to say, I cried with relief. They were the worst years of my adult life.
I'm a guy, used to be a bartender, working a shift one night and start chatting to this girl. She seemed nice enough, so I asked her out, and a couple days later, we go on a very casual date. Literally just met up for a cup of coffee and a chat. My next shift at the bar, she turns up, alone, and sits at the end of the bar. I'm just doing my job, start having a laugh and a joke with one of the regulars, and Crazy storms over and starts full-blown screaming at the girl. Tells her to stop flirting with my boyfriend. It nearly gets physical. The bouncers are already over, standing by to chuck her out. So, I tell Crazy that I'm not her boyfriend, that we've been on one single date that lasted an hour, and if that's how she's going to react when I just talk to another woman, especially when I'm just serving a customer, she can go ahead and leave. She screams at me and storms off. Next day, I woke up to about 50 text messages, starting with, "I'm sorry," then, "Why aren't you answering?" then a ton of abuse, then she'd apologize for that, and the whole thing would start over again from, "I'm sorry." I blocked her number. Next work shift, she comes screaming into the bar, begging for forgiveness, that she's sorry, please unblock her number. I tell her in no uncertain terms to beat it and to leave me alone. Screams, tears, and another storm off. Then, a few nights later, I was going to bed, turned off my bedroom light, and my phone goes off. A text from a number I didn't recognize that just says, "Good night." I look out of my window. She's parked across the street watching my house. That went on for a week or two. Then the strangest part happened. I was at work, and she walked in, came to the bar, and told me she was there with her new boyfriend. I breathed a sigh of relief while pitying the poor guy. Then her new boyfriend walked in. He was my freaking doppelganger. I mean, people could have mistook us for twins. He even wore the same glasses I did. So, I was just standing there in shock, and she introduced this guy to me as her ex. It's only funny looking back now, but the look on the guy's face when he was me was just pure, "Oh fuck, she's insane." So, she makes a big deal of basically wrapping herself around him all night in front of me, while he looked more and more uncomfortable. Then at some point he leaves, and she tries to get behind the bar, crying hysterically that she was only dating him to make me jealous, and she really loved me, not him. The ending is pretty anticlimactic. I went to the police station and reported her, and asked how to get a restraining order, but never ended up needing one. Being removed from the front of my house on another late-night camping session by the police scared her into leaving me alone.
Ladies and gentlemen, brave souls and seekers of the supernatural, you've just embarked on a journey through the cryptic realms of fear with your host, Old Nicholas Black. For more enigmatic stories, subscribe to Black Scary Stories. Until next time, this is your host, Old Nicholas Black, bidding you farewell. Fear not the night, for within it lies the essence of haunting tales.